Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Finally, here in the year 2025, it's Every Rockie Ever. It's been a little while. Life's been busy, but we're kicking off our first episode of the new year. Dustin is back in school, and oddly enough, had a snow day.
Yes, thanks to the snow day, finally back in the recording studio.
Mm-hmm. I telling him I should have gotten him a microphone for Christmas. We'll figure something out. His birthday's coming up, but we're back here with Every Rockie Ever, and it's been a little while. I think what was our last one that we talked about? It was like Yorvi Torrealba, and
I was like,
it's been
eesh.
it's been a hot minute. Yeah, there's plenty of Rockies still to talk about. We've just barely even scratched the surface in all of our episodes and whatnot. Uh, last one was Dustin Garneau, Tony Walters, and Scott Oberg. So there we go. And Scott Oberg, who is now a minor league pitching coordinator, got that promotion. So maybe the Rockies saw our episode and decided, hey, let's promote him. We'll go with that.
Yeah, old Dick Monfort listening right to it.
Mm-hmm. We also had on that episode, I believe, Dustin Garneau's sibling, might have been his brother, commented on it on that episode. So shout out to him and give a shout out to his own brother. That Dustin is one of the most knowledgeable people about the game that he knows and stuff like that. So very cool. But this one we figured kick off the new year. Let's do a significant one. A couple of very significant Rockies who are very interconnected with each other, strictly because they were traded for one another. They also wore the same number. And oddly enough, they ended up playing together in 2018, really the last significant year for either of them in their careers. So, a big one here, some fan favorites, old Big Daddy and Little Pony. It's Matt Holliday and Carlos Gonzalez.
Dude, Matt Holliday's just a monster. You know, a lot of people would say he should have been a middle linebacker in the NFL. He's just ginormously huge. And when he'd hit that ball, whew,
Yeah.
you know, it was like even bad contact was better. You know, the ball came off his bat harder than some of these guys the full swing, and Matt Holliday could just like blink at the ball and
Yeah.
it was gone.
Yeah. But both prolific hitters for the Rockies, a lot of power, and just some really good years in Rockies uniforms. And it's nice that it's one of the few trades that worked out for the Rockies, where they traded off a notable guy, they get a notable guy back who ends up being a franchise player, put up some big years in Colorado. So it's fun to look back on them. It'll be a good to look back on their careers and everything they did. But sticking with our classic format, Dustin, give us the rundown here on old Matt Holliday.
Matt Holliday, left fielder, batted right, threw right, 6'4", 240. Sheesh. A monster from Stillwater, Oklahoma. The Rockies drafted him out of high school in the 7th round of the 1998 draft. And he made his major league debut April 16th, 2004. And played for the Rockies from 2004 to 2008, and then was traded to Oakland to bring Cargo over. Then he played there in Oakland, then was shipped off over to St. Louis and played for the Cardinals. And that's where a lot of people remember Matt Holliday playing for the Cardinals. And from 2009 to 2016, and then he went over to the Yankees, and then back to the Rockies, hoping to get that magic, have him spark things up in that 2018 season, and that was it. Seven-time All-Star, won the World Series in 2011 with the Cardinals, and was a 4-time Silver Slugger, won a batting title, he was an NLCS MVP, wore number 5 for us, and just kind of weird that number 7 there in 2018. But Matt Holliday, Big Daddy, that touched home plate.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, you look at those numbers, like, people, like, go on to Baseball Reference, look at his stat page. He was, kinda dispelled that Coors Field myth in a way where he definitely benefited from playing in Colorado, but then he continued to rake when he was in St. Louis, where regular 20 home runs on the regular, dude was hitting close to 300, 299 career average. Like, he's one of those kinda maybe most underrated or overlooked sluggers of the 2000s. From 2004 to the end of his career, really through 2016. Oh, even through 2017 at 37 years old. Like, just kind of one of those overlooked quality hitters throughout his career.
Yeah, and for me, I I was gone. I was out of the country when he made his debut, so I missed out on the 2000 all of the 2004 season, pretty much. Um, the 2005 season, no idea who he was, and 2006, kind of the same thing. Didn't really pay any attention, but then in 2007, oh yeah, I got to know who Matt Holliday was.
Yeah, it was those lean years, and it's kinda as Larry Walker's going out the door, dealt with some injuries. Holiday's able to step in there in 2004, and, there were other injuries in that outfield, so he gets his starting spot in the outfield and makes the most of it in that rookie season, finishes 5th in the Rookie of the Year voting, which, dang, like, for what is it, a 7th round pick? You think of Matt Holliday, you're like, "Oh, he's probably, like, no, 1st, 2nd, maybe a 3rd round pick." But the fact that he came out of the 7th round, I think is it's always cool when you see those guys that elevate to a certain level when they're not the prestige 1st, 2nd, or even sometimes 3rd round picks.
Well, yeah, especially since he was, just an athlete
Mhm,
that with that size and that potential. And this is still, they draft him in the 1998, so we're still Coors Field still, a launching pad, and they say this kid with this raw power, and let's get him up here, put him in the system, and got up there. Looking at those numbers as a rookie, batted 290 with you know 14 home runs, 116 hits, 31 doubles in 121 games. Like started off really strong, and it just kept getting better from there.
mhm.
2006 had his first All Star season. 2007 when he should have been the MVP. 2008 he was still, you know, up there in all those numbers. But man, he he's just a hitting machine, especially there with Colorado. But and then he in his playoff 2007 at 289
Mhm.
and five home runs in that playoff. Man, the guy could just hit.
Yeah.
Little sketchy on the defensive side.
He
Like gave me flashbacks of Dante Bichette.
Well, that's what I was gonna say is he was kind of the second coming of Dante Bichette in Colorado, where, yeah, the defense, man, the Rockies would have loved to have a DH at that time because, well, he wasn't like a slacker on defense. He wasn't the best just because it's hard to cover the outfield, especially at Coors Field in left field where you need a borderline center fielder there. But he made the most of it, did what he did, but he made up for it with the bat. That's what he was there for, and then you'll take what you can get defensively.
You know, in his 15-year career, he stole 108 bases.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's amazing. Over his career, 316 home runs, 32 triples, 468 doubles, over 2,000 hits in his career. You know, a career 299 batter, and it was just it was the last 4 years of his. Yeah, those last few years really that drug his batting average below 300.
Mm-hmm.
But it was every year. You know, that 2007 season, 340. Man, remember when the Rockies used to always have hitters up that high? And Matt Holliday just would do his thing.
Mm-hmm.
137 RBIs. Whew.
Yeah, he was like a great, like as Todd Helton's getting older. No, still a very good year in 2007. But he gets to play with Todd through some of those prime years and kind of replaces Larry Walker as this great 1-2 punch there in that lineup of a righty and lefty. No, the big slugger, but then you've got the sneaky good slugger and Todd Helton there in that lineup. A good sneaky tandem there in those years, and it's trying to he was supposed to start in AAA in 2004. Starts there, but then Preston Wilson and Larry Walker both get injured. So they call him up. He's just supposed to be a temporary replacement. But instead, he goes on to do what he does and takes over the starting left fielder spot, never relinquishes it for the rest of the year. And immediately becomes that staple in that lineup for several years as Generation R starts to come in. He was really one of the heralds of that. But interesting stuff. But oh yeah, here's one. Known for his power there in 2004, I believe, or 2005. One of those years, he and Jeremy Burnitz and Charles Johnson did a back-to-back-to-back home runs against the Marlins, 6th time in franchise history. And I believe it was him and Jeremy Burnitz. They teamed up, first pair in like Rockies history, where they had back-to-back home runs twice in a game. So yeah, it's prolific power hitter. Just unreal.
That and that bald head of his just,
Yeah.
you know, just intensity all the time. You know, it was he was fun to watch. For me, it was really short that I got to see him play, but just the whole attitude that, you know, his countenance, the way he held himself, and not only is a Colorado Rocky, I think a lot. I saw more when he was a St. Louis Cardinal, but his demeanor, his intensity, uh, you know, later in his career when he came back to the Rockies at 2018, it was kind of like that. You know, when we had Jason Giambi,
Mm-hmm.
that veteran, seasoned veteran on the bench that would come in late in the game and, you know, make something happen, teaching these younger guys, um, you know, whatever they, you know, sharing that knowledge that they had, and, you know, he's a guy now that his name's always getting thrown out there as coaching,
Mm-hmm.
as a manager, whatever. You know, Colorado Rockies fans would love that. He's done a pretty dang good job with his two boys.
Mm-hmm.
You know, his two oldest boys, they're pretty decent at baseball.
Yeah. Well, then he was going to be the bench coach for the Cardinals this past season, and then he backed out. He's like, no, I want to focus back on my kids and everything. Yeah, it's for a lot of fans. It's like his time in Colorado is just so short. Honestly, in just 6 seasons, parts of those 6 seasons, but he did so much where he ingrained himself into just Rockies lore, and part of that is because of that historic 2007 season where he puts up prolific numbers, led the league in hits with 216 and doubles with 50, RBIs with 137, that 340 average, like you mentioned. And yet somehow he finishes second to Jimmy Rollins. Who, like, yeah, Jimmy Rollins had like 0.1 WAR better than him, but it was mostly for his defense or because it was the Phillies.
It was because it was the Phillies. Oh, that's just like when Tulo loses out on the Rookie of the Year to Ryan Braun. Oh, just robberies. Matt Holliday was the most valuable player that season.
Yeah, and it is because the Phillies won their division or whatever. We're supposed to be the World Series favorites, and then he gets 11 first place votes and 5 less than Jimmy Rollins. So people with those Coors Field biases very rampant in those days. How Larry Walker won one in his career, I'll never know, because how has nobody else gotten one with just as good as performances in years? But 63 walks that year for Matt Holliday. Wild year. But it comes up with a 6 WAR, finishes second, but hey, they made it to the playoffs and they made it to the World Series. And he had a good year. Like you mentioned there in the postseason. No, he did his part in the World Series. And unlike the rest of the team, couldn't pull it off, but he had 5 hits, a home run in the World Series, 3 ribbies. Just a good, solid player. And then when he comes back, I think that's what's cool too, is he's there for the Rockies' really first main big run in the playoffs. And then 2018 was really supposed to be a year where the Rockies make a good run, maybe into the playoffs. They have a better chance of making a decent run. And so they bring him in as that veteran role late in the season, because he was just kind of chilling at his house. They're like, "Hey, you want to come play for us?" Like, all right. But in that wild card game, no, he went 1 for 3, but he drove in it. He had a double in it, had a hit in the division series in limited time. He came back and he was still the old Matt Holliday that we kind of remember.
Yeah, and we're like, well, shoot, he can bring him back.
Yeah.
Bring him back again.
I think that was the conversations too, of like, well, maybe we could bring back Matt Holliday and he could play first base. Or that had always been occasions of looking at him and say, hey, can he come back and maybe play first base for us? Oh, never mind, he's going back to the Yankees. But always that quick fan favorite, and perhaps the most famous moment for Matt Holliday, the most significant slide in franchise history in game 163, where he hit a triple to get on third, didn't he? Or it was too low. How did he get over to third? I always forget. Or he thought he had the home run and hit it. No, he hit a triple.
He hit it. It was deep and off the wall.
Yeah.
And kind of bounced around and got into third.
Mm-hmm. So he gets into third and huffing and puffing, and then old Jamie Carroll, Rockies legend, hits one out to right field. And it's kind of a short line drive that, is it Brian Giles that makes the catch? Makes the catch, and a risky run there for Matt Holliday.
And what I always thought is, how come he didn't just truck him? Because the Buster Posey rule wasn't in place yet, was it?
No.
Where he could, big old 240-pound Matt Holliday could have taken was it Michael Barrett, the Padres catcher? But instead, that awkward nosedive slide, definitely touched.
Uh-huh.
And everybody goes crazy. Matt Holliday's like dirt burn on his face, laying on the ground in agony, while everybody's like,
yeah. Yeah, because he scraped up his chin, kind of had almost concussed himself. And I do like that. They're like, the C is on the ground. They're like, okay, let's move over to Jamie Carroll instead. Woo!
Oh.
But yeah, as much as Padres fans will say, "Oh, he didn't touch it," and he touched it. We have a commercial to prove it.
Well, then I liked in 2018 for the players weekend. There was the spoof jersey that was going
Mhm.
around that his said I touched home or whatever.
Mhm. And that that Bud Black was his manager there in 2018, and it probably would have gotten overturned if they had, the replay then. But hey,
Well, if he would have made any type of reaction to go back and touch it for sure, because
yeah,
he didn't peg it clean on the throw, the catcher, and so
yeah,
it's one of those things. But I think when Rockies fans think of Matt Holliday, that's the number one memory.
mhm,
And like I said, other than that, it's just monstrous home runs that really, to me, that huge, just that wingspan when he'd swing that bat. His it was always that like super wide, those that could, and
mhm.
just whacking with the arms way out there, just like
Hey,
that. Yeah,
I
he
got my
he go with that
bobblehead.
one arm finish. That was Matt Holliday, just monstrous.
Yeah, though I think that kind of epitome of where power comes from. It was all in those legs, those tree trunk legs, and he didn't have to do a lot. Had a nice simple load and just exploded through the zone. And it helped then that he had just big old trunks for arms too.
Huge.
I remember there in 2018. No, you couldn't tell that he was 38 years old because I remember we went to a game. It was near the end of the season there in 2018 against the Diamondbacks, and DJ ends up hitting a walk-off home run in that game. But he started in left field, which was cool. We were sitting out in left field, and so it was fun to watch him again, be there, and you look at him like, man, that dude still looks like if he got a full season, could put up 30 home runs. And he only got a couple of homers with the Rockies that year in 25 games, but he still had a 849 slugging. He had 15 hits down the stretch. But I remember in that game too where he hit a foul ball and it sailed there into the corner seats and by the left field pole. And there was the children's choir that had sung the national anthem sitting out there. The ball ends up hitting one of the little girls. And so there's just all the commotion where she's crying and medical people come to like, are you okay? Like, oh, well, let's go check you out. It's like, geez, that ball came screaming off his bat through the air. And we're like, oh, he's got a home run. Oh, it's curving in and it hits a little girl.
Oh, and it's in the kids' choir.
Oh no. But and then I think he drew a walk at the end of that game that helped set up the rally there at the end of the game. So he always comes in clutch, a really clutch player.
Well, that was always like when we look back when I was looking at memorable moments and stuff of just the tape measure home run shots when the home run in Game 3 of the World Series. Uh, he always seemed to be at third base or up
Mhm,
to bat on these key moments. In 2008 when they had it was their largest comeback in franchise history when they were trailing the Marlins 13-4, and they battled. He had a solo shot, he had a grand slam, and he was the guy that scored the winning run. Complete that comeback against the Marlins 17-16
mhm.
or to 18-17. But it's like he was always there. Game 163, he was the guy scoring the run. And that he was a guy that it was so fun to watch. And I think everybody was like, he's just played himself. He's been too good that we can't afford him.
Yeah.
He's a superstar. and it was that Dan O'Dowd days.
Mm-hmm.
This was a chess move when they shipped off Matt Holliday to Oakland.
Mm.
Because what they got in return was amazing for what that Oakland was. They've always just been the scapegoat. The whatever, they'll just do whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and that was it for his Rockies. At the time, this 2018 reunion was cool, but I remember I was disappointed because we didn't know what we were getting in return,
Yeah.
and he continued to just excel, wherever he was, and that was Matt Holliday for me.
Yeah. In January 18th, back in 2008, he signed a 2-year, $23 million deal, covered the final 2 years of arbitration. And then the Rockies offered another extension, the 4-year, $72 million, with a club option for a 5th year. And for some reason, from this stuff, they viewed it as a 2-year, the 2-year, everything as a singular deal worth $107 million. But Holiday and Scott Boras, that they thought of it as like an $84 million free agent contract, which is undervalued. So the talks kind of stalled there in spring training. And so then they probably just made the decision like, oh, when we get the chance, we'll probably ship him at the deadline. And it didn't help that they'd kind of fallen off that year anyway as a team, where it put him in a position to trade him away. But man, if they maybe just kept working on negotiations, figure something out, maybe he sticks around as a Rocky for several more years. But like you're saying, I think they were just convinced, like, yeah, well, he's played himself out of Colorado just because we can't afford to keep him, and he wouldn't want to stick around. So let's ship him off. But yeah, classic player, Rockies legend, and hopefully it would have been nice to have been able to draft his son Ethan. There's still the slightest of chances, but it would have been nice to have Holiday back in the family. Who knows? But it's probably not going to happen. But it's always nice when they can see Holiday there. He shows up at a game and hops into the booth. They're playing the Orioles or something, or he just shows up and they get to talk to him for a little bit. It's always good to see old Holiday.
Yeah.
Yeah, a legendary Rocky for wearing number 5. But like you said, they traded him to Oakland, and we didn't know what we were going to get, but we got something pretty good in return when all was said and done. As they shipped him off there in uh, in, uh, in
No,
July 20,
November of 2008.
so after 2008, they sent him over to the Oakland A's for Carlos Gonzalez, Greg Smith, a pitcher, and Houston Street. And we've talked about Houston Street before, of a lockdown closer for the Rockies over several years. He was probably like one of the marquee pieces of, okay, a good bullpen piece heading into 2009. Greg Smith, household name. But it was
Terrible.
this intriguing
Ugh.
outfielder named Carlos Gonzalez, who ends up becoming a franchise legend in his own right. So take it away.
Carlos Gonzalez, outfielder, batted left, threw left, 6'1", 220 from Maracaibo, Venezuela. Just a few months older than him. Made his debut on May 30th, 2008. And sorry, just lost my place. he was picked up, started his major league career when he was signed by the Diamondbacks in 2002 as an amateur free agent out of Venezuela. Then he was traded by the Diamondbacks to the Oakland A's with Brett Anderson, Chris Carter, Aaron Cunningham, Dana Evelyn, and Greg Smith. for Dan Heron and Connor Robertson. So there's some guys, Rockies guys and names that were with Cargo quite a few times.
Mhm.
And then in 2008, traded from Oakland to the Rockies, as you said, for Greg Smith and Houston Street with him for Matt Holliday. And then sadly, and was with the Rockies from 2009 season all the way to 2017, and then came back to the Rockies for another year. But then that was it. We said goodbye, and he went to the Cleveland Indians at the time. Spent some time with the Cubs. Signed as a free agent with the Mariners, and that was all she wrote for Cargo. But he was a 3-time All-Star, 3-time Gold Glove winner, 2-time Silver Slugger, won a batting title. And for me, he is the true number 5. Always and forever. The Little Pony.
It was Brad Hopp that named him Little Pony.
I think so.
Yeah, old Cargo. The sweetest swing in baseball this side of Ken Griffey Jr.
Man, he was just fun to watch. He always had that smile going on. He always seemed to be the party, and he could just smash that ball. I was actually watching a TikTok that said some of the best, calls of home runs or whatever, and it was Harold Reynolds on MLB Network, and they're doing the live in-game look, and he's like, he's got one right here. He's gonna walk it off, grand slam, and what does he do? One of those line drive shots that didn't get 10 foot off the ground, just a laser.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing I remember about Cargo is those line drive, just laser shots where he wasn't hitting the big mammoth. No, you look at Cargo and you're like, oh, he's probably not the superstar slugger, but when that swing would connect with the ball, he'd send those just missiles into the seats on a line drive. There's no arch to him.
Yeah, it hardly ever seemed like he gave those moon shots. It was a straight direct flight. Those balls got out quick, and you knew it, and he knew it. He would do that, the fling, like the little bat flip, and just kind of watch it. Holy cow! He could mash that ball.
Yeah, it was the swing where, because he'd have the big leg kick loading as he swings through. As soon as he makes contact and it's coming around, as soon as on the follow through, dropping the bat in one fluid motion, because it was such a sweet swing, so smooth. It looked so nice. Fortunately, it would be a detriment in the later part of his career, but it was always so nice to look at.
Yeah, because oh man, it was fun, and he was just big. He was fast. When he came up, he was playing center field. And he had a cannon of an arm that would be on point. But before we get into, I do have to get this out of the way. And so this. I own Cargo. Okay. Not very many pitchers can say that, they shut him down and Cargo batted 0.000 against them.
This is, as listeners of the show will remember, Dustin, when he was in college at CSU Pueblo, they went and had a scrimmage against the Sky Sox, and all the pitchers getting some action, and lo and behold, who does he come up against? Cargo is one of them.
Oh yeah, man, he was big. That nobody knew who he was or what. The only person I think any of us knew was Josh Fogg. All the rest of these guys were just the AAA squad, and man, he was up there, looked intimidated, just that stance. And I remember I got threw a fastball in that he watched for a strike, and then I remember throwing a curveball, and I thought I hung it. I let it. It came out, and I was like, "Oh boy," because we had already seen some fireworks from those guys.
Mhm.
And I let go of it, and I was like, "Oh boy, what did he do?" So I'm not the only pitcher that made him whiff on a curveball. He did that quite a bit. So then I throw him a changeup in. He just clobbered into the ground to first baseman. And so Cargo 0 for 1 against me. A washed up college wannabe, you know? So every time I'd watch and be like, these guys don't know how to handle him.
For your one sample size.
Yeah.
But that's the like prowess that we remember of Cargo. You're saying just an intimidating guy in the box where you felt like he could do something special at any moment as soon as he steps into that box. He gets his pitch, that laser is sitting up halfway up in the seats in right field.
Yeah. Oh man. He was just fun to watch. And he came onto the scene. I think he was one of those spark plugs in making that 2009 push. Uh, that's when Jim Tracy takes over, you know, and he just kept plugging him in there, Shem, and he just lit a fire. He played with that passion too, always with that smile,
Mm-hmm.
and it was fun to watch that group. And then 2010, sheesh, finished third in the MVP voting and
Was battling for the
gold.
Triple Crown that year.
Yeah, 193 hits, uh, 34 homers, 117 RBI, 26 stolen bases, batted 336, 351 total bases. Like, oh man. And that was in 145 games. He was just a powerhouse. And, his whole time with the Rockies batted 290 in the 10 years that he was with Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Had 227 homers. And he was just, man, he was fun to watch. And I miss him because it was he was so good, so good, so good, and then it just disappeared.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a big part of like injuries with like his legs, started to whittle down there. Really in 2014 is when you see his stolen bases just disappear. And so he loses a lot of that speed. In right field, his legs aren't great, his knees aren't great. Still a good swing and everything, but definitely his production started to go downhill a bit. Or just his overall game went from like a 5-tool player to he's got a couple of tools now. And then it got to a point where I think the league just adjusted to him and he didn't adjust back, especially there
Yeah,
in just right at the end.
yeah, you could see that his hands just couldn't catch up to the fastball, and it was just it it was heartbreaking to see.
Hmm.
Been so good, so good, so good, so good, so good, and then, well, then in 2016 he has an all-star season,
Mm.
and the numbers looked really good, but then it just completely went down. Like, he was not the same guy that we were used to for those last 2 years.
Yeah. Has a slight bounce back there in 2018, but it's overall he's a husk of his former self. You're like, man, no, you can see the elements are all still there, but it's just not producing the way that we're all used to. Like there went down to he went from the superstar, like top player, down to just a pretty average guy on a team. And unfortunately, it's like at 32 years old, well, That's it. And then he bounces around a little bit, and it is probably a big shame that the Rockies did not sign him to just a one-day contract, let him officially retire as a Rocky instead of letting him wither away with the Mariners during COVID before the summer camp kicks off. It's one of their great failings as an organization. Just man, Cargo should have finished as a Rocky.
Yeah.
But you look throughout that career, and what's interesting, it's back in Drew Goodman's book. It's like If These Walls Could Talk and those kind of books. Where in 2009 he was talking to Spilly and Jim Tracy, and I think he talked to Cargo too about it. If Cargo gets called up after Jim Tracy takes over, they call up Cargo, and Tracy just keeps sticking him out there, and he is awful. Like he is just doing terrible. And Spilly, no, it's annoying Spilly, who was like, "Hey, I was doing good. I was supposed to be starting. Like, why is Cargo still playing and I'm not?" And I think Spilly walks up to Cargo one day. It's like, "Hey, if you're gonna be like playing every day, can you start playing better so I don't feel bad about myself?" Type of thing. And then do these other things, and Jim Tracy having to have some heart to hearts with Cargo. They're in the clubhouse, in his office, where Cargo like kind of in tears and stuff, just knowing his own struggles. It was a 23-year-old. But for Jim Tracy, I think that's something we can point back to Jim Tracy. Like in those early years, and I think throughout his career with the Rockies, a really good manager of the players, of the people he's working with, these men he's working with, had their back and treated them with a lot of respect and empathy, and telling Cargo that he had his full confidence. Like, I'm going to keep putting you out there because I know what you can do. And Cargo takes that, and from there, the rest is history, where he takes those conversations and starts producing more and more and more. And that's what I remember in 2009, because I wasn't like fully out of the loop. I was like, oh, Matt Holliday's gone. I don't know who they got. I know Houston Street, but I don't know these other guys. And then all of a sudden, suddenly Cargo's there. He's in the line. I'm like, oh, there's this Carlos Gonzalez in the outfield wearing number 5. I hope he's good. And so for me, it was just suddenly there was Cargo in 2009.
Yeah, he throughout his career though, uh some of those key things is, in 2009 his bat just was on fire against the Phillies,
Uh-huh.
And then it we see this replay all the time. July 31st, 2010, Cargo hits for the cycle. Just he's monstrous the way that he do things. 2010, like you said, battling for the Triple Crown. In 2012, when he had 4 home runs on 4 straight at bats, against the Astros, and
Yeah.
it was just poof, the laser shots. 2015 gets 40 home runs in the season. And there's a funny one of looking up moments. In 2017, he had a 480-foot foul ball. It's so it's just it said it ended up at the rooftop,
Mm-hmm.
and this guy. So it's like you said, he was another one that when that swing was on, the ball would just take off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was looking at those 2009 stats in the first half, 27 games, had hit 202, 280 on base, 333 slugging, a home run, 4 doubles, 2 triples, and then 25 strikeouts against 9 walks. So you can see why he was frustrated, and Spilly's like, come on, man. But then in that second half, he turns it around, 62 games, hits 320 with a 608 slugging, 992 OPS, 118 total bases with his 12 home runs, 5 triples, 10 doubles, 11 stolen bases, with 45 strikeouts and 19 walks. So just flipped that switch and really turned it up. And unfortunately, like we said, his hands just couldn't keep up. He had his tendencies. There wasn't a slider or curveball down and away from a left-hander that he didn't like. And we get flashes of we get flashes of Cargo when we watch Tovar now.
Mm-hmm.
Ball down and away, and we're like, oh, just lay off of it. You can't hit it. But he kept on a swinging. But we talk so much about his offense, but really it's his defense too. The 3-time Gold Glover, I think, is what really set him up so well as well, because you mentioned a rocket of an arm, which made him just perfect for right field.
And he'd get great jumps on balls. I think his center fielder experience and throwing him into right field, he was always. I always remember, the Superman dives for catches, and he would pick up that ball and just launch it in, and it was accurate. He was fast. He was quick, and that's. We watched him and said, "This." That's Larry Walker would do. Well, Brad hopped before him, another very good strong arm defender. And I think it kept up that tradition that the Rockies have had. In right field, you got somebody that's going to hose you, and Cargo was that guy, just getting great reads. He had the speed, and we always say, the Rockies have always been a good defensive team, and Cargo fit right in.
Yeah, those 3 Gold Gloves and good stuff. But yeah, it's one of those, like, man, what could have been if he had just maybe even been able to stay a little healthier or just been able to make some adjustments. Can he stick around beyond 2018? Have a longer career, because it feels like a career cut short still, where he peters out by the time he's 33. And you're like, man, he feels like he should have been somebody who's playing around till he's 37.
Yeah, it was, and it seemed like, yeah, maybe there was some injury stuff, the legs, things just didn't look the same after that last year. When he went and bounced around with the Indians, the Cubs, and stuff, it just wasn't the same guy. And I was surprised when I saw that his name was on the Hall of Fame ballot. So I said, wait, did he ever officially retire? But I guess he did. But he's got his family. Son, he's got the twins and his wife. Doing all their stuff, and he's just living life and enjoying it. It pumped me up when I saw him like at Rockies stuff, because as Rockies fans, we love Cargo. We'll always love Cargo, and anytime he's around, it's just going to make things happy, like he was.
Yeah,
brighten it up.
Yeah, that was the thing in the contrast where we've talked about Troy Tulowitzki or some other guys, where they're kind of maybe a little bit more intense, even like Matt Holliday, a little bit more intense in just how they approach the game and their work ethic and things. But Cargo able to bring some of that Latin flair to it, of a little more happy-go-lucky, still an intensely hard worker, took the game seriously, but also enjoyed himself. Was having fun, would bring some levity to those clubhouses in the dugout. Now, I think, and how loved he was by his teammates. I think back to 2018 when it was kind of like a question of, well, is Cargo going to come back? Rockies, he's a free agent. He's looking around, and I think Arenado was like, we got to bring him back. And when he does sign that 1-year deal in spring training, there's that image of how happy Arenado was, and he's just a big old hug on Cargo when he's back in that clubhouse. How significant that was for some of those players, of just to have Cargo back in the fold he didn't leave. And now it's that kind of personality the Rockies have been missing for several years now.
Well, that was the thing. He had that, but his performance too showed
Mm-hmm.
like this guy's legit and we need him. And he backed it up. And I know he's not going to get almost anything for that Hall of Fame, but for the Rockies, he is up there and one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, and we haven't done this for a while, but like in the pantheon of outfielders for both of these guys, they're right up there with the likes of Larry Walker and Dante Bichette.
Yeah, for me, Cargo is, he's. I would say for as long as he played those 10 seasons and how well he did, he's one. He's if I'm putting together, I'm putting together a starting outfield. I, ugh, he's in. I'm probably putting him left field, Charlie Blackmon center, Larry Walker and right. That's my Holiday. Yeah, he just wasn't there long enough.
Yeah, he's our
And
he's our backup DH behind Dante Bichette.
yeah, exactly. But these two guys, it was Cargo was a great replacement. It was a great move to get him, and I miss him. I really do.
Yeah, and it's nice that he does come to Rockies games, and he'll show up whenever they're in Miami. He'll show up there, and always pops into the booth, which are always fun couple of innings because then he's ragging on Spilly, and in a more fun way than what we'd usually get during broadcasts with Corey Sullivan and the guys being a little more mean to Spilly, but it's always in good fun with Cargo being there. I always wanted a Cargo and Spilly broadcast, like a Manning cast, but with those two.
Oh man, that'd be good. That would be good.
But yeah, but those years of Cargo and Tulo, what a great 1-2 punch that was when they were
Oh
both
yeah.
healthy on the field together. One of the best duos in Rockies history.
Yep.
And hey, they're both on the ballot, the Hall of Fame ballot. Neither of them are likely to get 5% of the vote to stick on. And just like Matt Holliday, who fell off after 1 year, I don't think he really got any votes at all, which is a shame. But both those guys, they deserve that recognition. And to be on the ballot in and of itself speaks to just their greatness in baseball. But yeah, good old Little Pony and Big Daddy. Always classic. We're cool with Carlos Gonzalez. That was the shame a couple years ago in the draft. I think the Cardinals took him. There was that Chase Davis coming out of Arizona who people were calling Cargo 2.0 because you watch his swing and that's stinking Carlos Gonzalez with his swing, and like Cargo had actually like mentored him a little bit too, like picking up on it. And so I think a lot of us fans were watching the draft that year he got taken. We're like, man, can we get Chase Davis? Oh, never mind. The Cardinals took him. Can we trade for Chase Davis? But oh well. But fun stuff. Good players, Rockies legends. Should number 5 be retired in any capacity?
I would say yes. It's kind of weird. You'd have to do the, Holiday / Gonzalez on it. I think is the way you'd have to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'd be a tough one. Or if we're making our own Rockies Hall of Fame, are they first ballot?
Yes,
for our Rockies Hall of Fame?
I'd say Cargo most definitely. If Holiday would have won the MVP that season, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But just because Cargo played for 10 seasons, that's why I hold him above Holiday.
Yeah. Holiday is more of a Cardinal than he is a Rocky in the grand
Yes.
scheme of things. But yeah, both great players, Rockies favorites. Just go watch highlights of them. If you've never seen them, just go watch highlights on YouTube of these guys playing and just bask in the glory of home runs and beautiful swings. Fundamental swings. Good stuff. But that'll do it here for this edition of Every Rockie Ever. Always, we appreciate you tuning in. And be sure to follow here at Rocky Mountain Rooftop here on YouTube and your favorite podcasting platforms. You can follow the at Every Rockie Ever Twitter account. That's at Every Rockie Ever. You can also follow at ROCKY MTN Rooftop, Rocky Mountain Rooftop over on Twitter and Blue Sky. We are over there as well. For me, follow me over on Twitter at sideline_crowd or on Blue Sky stimmons13.bsky.social. And then Dustin, I don't really use Twitter at all either. At Vamos Rockies.
Yeah, I'm more of a TikTok star nowadays.
Yeah, that's going away too anyway.
I know.
Potentially.
I'll just make my own thing.
But yeah, but follow along. We'll hopefully get another one. We'll get it out when we can do. That's Every Rockie Ever is a little less the formal regular thing. There's just something fun for us to do. But Rocky Mountain Rooftop every week on Mondays. Be sure to check out those episodes. But until next time, I'm Skyler. That's Dustin. This has been Every Rockie Ever. Farewell.
Farewell.